If you're a sci-fi fan, then brace yourself for the ultimate showdown. The Xindral Dominion is here, and Earth will never be the same.
The sky above Earth was no longer blue. Massive Xindral Dominion warships filled the heavens, their dark angular shapes blotting out the sun. Each ship was a leviathan, bristling with weapons that hummed with devastating potential. Below, the once vibrant cities of Earth burned. Smoke rose in twisting columns, blackening the air and choking the last remnants of hope. Admiral Kara Myles stood on the bridge of the Sol Ascendant, her expression carved from stone. The tactical displays around her flickered with chaotic streams of information, fleet positions, damage reports, and casualty counts that climbed with every second. Each loss felt like a blade in her chest, but she did not flinch. "We've lost contact with New Delhi," a young officer said, his voice shaking. "And Tokyo has fallen." Kara closed her eyes for a brief moment. Another city, another piece of humanity gone. When she opened them, her voice was steel. "Redirect power to the planetary shields. We buy them time, no matter the cost." The officer hesitated, his fear evident. "Ma'am, the shields won't hold against their primary assault carriers. They'll hold long enough," Kara interrupted, her tone sharp. She leaned over the console, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried the weight of command. "If we give up now, there's nothing left to fight for." The burden of command. Kara's boots echoed against the metal floor as she walked the length of the bridge. Around her, the crew worked feverishly, their faces illuminated by the cold glow of holographic displays. Each of them bore the same haunted expression, a mix of fear and grim determination. Her XO, Commander Darius Cole, approached. He was a mountain of a man, his battle-scarred face a testament to decades of service. "Admiral," he said quietly, his voice a deep rumble, "we need to talk about contingencies. The Sol Ascendant can't hold the line alone." Kara turned to face him, her gaze unwavering. "We're not running, Darius." "With respect, this isn't about running," he said, his tone softening. "It's about surviving. If Earth falls, humanity needs something, someone, to carry the fight forward." Kara's jaw tightened. She had heard this argument before, from her advisors, her captains, even her own conscience. But how could she abandon the billions still fighting on the surface? How could she face the ghosts of those she left behind? And yet, wasn't that the burden of command? To make impossible choices? "Prepare the evacuation protocols," she said finally, her voice low. "But we're not done here. Not yet." The ship shuddered violently as the first wave of Dominion fire slammed into the planetary shields. The energy barrier rippled, struggling to hold under the onslaught. Kara gripped the edge of her command station, her knuckles white. "Status!" she barked. "Shields are holding. Barely," Lieutenant Harris replied, his voice rising an octave. "But the Dominion is shifting formation. They're bringing the Devourer into range." A murmur swept through the bridge. The Devourer was the Dominion's flagship, a planet killer equipped with a superweapon capable of tearing through Earth's defenses in a single strike. "Time to impact?" Kara demanded. 3 minutes. Her mind raced. 3 minutes. That was all they had. Her eyes flicked to the crew around her, young, terrified, but still fighting. "Darius," she said, her voice firm, "target the Devourer's primary cannon. Prepare to fire the prototype railgun." Cole's eyes widened. "The railgun isn't ready. If it misfires, it's a risk we have to take." Kara turned to the bridge crew, her voice rising above the chaos. "This is it, people. We stand or we fall. I don't care how you do it. Make it work." The cost of defiance. As the Dominion fleet repositioned, the Sol Ascendant maneuvered into place, its sleek angular design cutting through the void like a blade. The railgun, a massive construct running along the ship's spine, began to hum with gathering energy. "Railgun at 80% charge," Harris reported, his hands flying across the controls. "Dominion fleet is responding," shouted another officer. "They're focusing fire on us." The ship rocked violently as energy blasts struck its shields. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the acrid smell of burning metal filled the air. "Shields at critical!" "Hold steady," Kara ordered. She gripped the edge of her console, her voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. "We fire at full charge. No sooner." Time seemed to stretch as the railgun reached maximum charge. Kara watched the targeting display, her breath steady despite the chaos around her. The Devourer's cannon was preparing to fire, its energy core glowing like a miniature star. "Target locked," Harris said, his voice tight. "Fire." The railgun unleashed a blinding beam of energy, slicing through the darkness of space. The shot struck the Devourer dead on, shattering its primary cannon in a spectacular explosion. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Kara's expression remained grim. "We're not done yet," she said. The destruction of the cannon bought precious time, but the Dominion fleet was relentless. Ships began to encircle the Sol Ascendant, their weapons trained on its exposed hull. "Admiral, we need to retreat," Cole urged. But Kara hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to stand her ground, to make them pay for every inch. Yet, she knew the truth. The battle was lost. "Signal the fleet," she said finally, her voice breaking slightly. "Begin the evacuation. Get as many off-planet as you can." As the Sol Ascendant prepared to jump to hyperspace, Kara took one last look at Earth. Fires raged across its surface, but amidst the destruction, she saw resilience, humanity's unyielding spirit, refusing to break even in the face of annihilation. Turning to her crew, she spoke with quiet conviction. "This isn't the end. It's the beginning. We may lose Earth, but humanity will rise again." The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them into the unknown. Behind them, Earth's final cries echoed through the void, a promise of vengeance and rebirth. What would you have done in Kara's position? Would you have stayed to fight or chosen to retreat earlier? Let us know in the comments below. Enjoying this epic tale of humanity's defiance? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more gripping HFY stories. The Sol Ascendant shot through hyperspace, its engines burning with the fury of humanity's last stand. The jump away from Earth was an act of desperation, but the emptiness of the void beyond brought no solace. On the bridge, Admiral Kara Myles stood with her arms crossed, her sharp gaze fixed on the holographic projection of their route. It was quiet now, too quiet. The chatter of the crew had been replaced by the subtle hum of the ship's systems. Even the stars seemed distant, their cold light filtered through the warship's viewports. "Status report," Kara ordered, her voice cutting through the stillness. "Course set for the fringe," Lieutenant Harris replied, his voice steady despite the tension in his shoulders. "We'll arrive at the Sigma-6 system in 12 hours. Kara gave a small nod, but her thoughts drifted. Sigma-6 wasn't a destination. It was a gamble. A barren, uncharted system on the edge of the galaxy, where rumors of ancient human technology had persisted for centuries. If the legends were true, it might hold the key to humanity's survival. If not, she shook the thought from her mind. There's no room for doubt now. As Kara stepped off the bridge, her XO, Commander Darius Cole, caught up with her. "You've been standing there for hours," Darius said, his deep voice tinged with concern. "Someone has to," Kara replied, her tone brisk as they walked through the dimly lit corridors of the ship. Darius frowned. "You're carrying too much, Kara. You always do." She stopped abruptly, turning to face him. "And who else should, Darius? You? Harris? The engineers working double shifts to keep this ship flying." His silence was her answer. "This isn't just a ship," she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's humanity's last hope. If I falter, if we falter, there's nothing left." Darius sighed, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You don't have to carry it alone. You've got us. Trust us to do our jobs." Kara hesitated, her resolve wavering for just a moment before she nodded. "Fine. But we still have a job to do. Let's make sure this ship makes it to Sigma Viag in one piece." Several hours later, alarms blared across the ship. Kara rushed back to the bridge, her boots pounding against the metal floor. "What's going on?" she demanded as she entered. "Unidentified vessel dropping out of hyperspace," Harris shouted, his hands flying across the console. "It's Dominion!" The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as crew members scrambled to respond. On the main display, a Dominion scout ship loomed sleek and menacing, its weapons already charging. "How the hell did they find us?" Darius muttered. "They must have tracked the hyperspace signature," Kara replied, her mind racing. "Battle stations." The Sol Ascendant came alive, its defensive systems locking onto the enemy ship. Kara's voice was calm but firm as she issued orders, her confidence inspiring her crew even in the face of overwhelming odds. "Target their engines. If we can disable them, we might still escape." The scout ship opened fire, its energy blasts slamming into the Sol Ascendant's shields. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the ship groaned under the strain. "Shields at 60%, Harris reported. Kara's fists clenched. The scout ship was faster, more maneuverable. The Sol Ascendant couldn't outrun it, and it certainly couldn't outgun it. They needed to think smarter. "Lieutenant Harris, bring us into the debris field ahead," Kara ordered. Harris hesitated. "Admiral, the field is unstable. If we—" "Do it!" The Sol Ascendant veered sharply, plunging into a dense cluster of asteroid fragments. The jagged rocks surrounded the ship, their edges glinting in the light of nearby stars. The Dominion scout ship followed, its weapons firing relentlessly. "Use the debris to mask our position," Kara said, "and prepare the EMP mines." Darius glanced at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You're planning to draw them in." "Exactly," Kara replied. "They're faster, but they're not smarter. Let's see how well they handle a surprise." The crew worked quickly, deploying the mines in the ship's wake. As the scout ship closed in, the Sol Ascendant banked hard to avoid a massive asteroid. The Dominion ship followed, right into the trap. The EMP mines detonated in a burst of energy, disabling the scout ship's systems. It drifted helplessly, its weapons and engines offline. "Direct hit," Harris cheered. "Don't celebrate yet," Kara said. "Prepare to jump to hyperspace. We don't have time to finish them off." The crew complied, and moments later, the Sol Ascendant vanished into the void, leaving the crippled Dominion scout ship behind. In the quiet that followed, Kara stood alone in her quarters, staring out at the stars. Her reflection in the viewport was tired, her features lined with the weight of responsibility. One battle down. How many more to go? She thought of the billions left behind on Earth, the faces of those who had trusted her to lead. Had she done enough? Could she do enough? A knock at the door broke her reverie. It was Darius. "You should get some rest," he said gently. Kara shook her head. "Not yet. There's too much to do." He hesitated before stepping closer. "We made it out. That's what matters. And we'll keep making it out, one fight at a time." Kara allowed herself a small, fleeting smile. "Let's hope Sigma V is worth it. Otherwise, we won't get many more chances." "If you were in Kara's position, would you have risked the EMP mines or tried to fight the scout ship head-on? Let us know what you think. Enjoying this thrilling chapter of humanity's fight for survival? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated on the next chapter of HFY Genesis. The Sol Ascendant emerged from hyperspace into a region of space that seemed almost dead. The Sigma-6 system lay before them, its sun dim and flickering, a star on the brink of death. The planets orbiting it were barren, their surfaces cracked and lifeless, bearing the scars of some long-forgotten catastrophe. Admiral Kara Myles stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the holographic display that mapped the system in vivid detail. Somewhere here, buried under centuries of silence, lay the remnants of humanity's ancient technology. "Scan the area," she ordered. "We're looking for anything unusual. Power signatures, structures, anything that doesn't belong." The crew moved quickly, their hands flying across consoles. Kara glanced at Darius, who stood beside her, his expression grim. "It's hard to believe this place ever held life," he murmured. Kara nodded. "Harder still to believe it might hold the key to saving ours." Hours later, the Sol Ascendant settled into orbit around Sigma These's second planet. The scans had revealed an underground structure, a massive installation that seemed untouched by time. But before they could explore, another priority demanded their attention. The meeting. In the ship's central conference room, representatives from 3 alien species sat around a circular table. Each one bore the marks of desperation and distrust. Dr. Xindral, the Quarren scientist, sat stiffly, his insectoid frame shimmering in the dim light. His compound eyes darted around the room, never settling on one face for long. Beside him, a hulking reptilian warrior of the Zarnak race leaned back in his seat, his jagged scales catching the light. His claws tapped the table rhythmically, a sound that echoed like distant thunder. The third representative, a willowy being of translucent skin called Lumira, sat motionless, her luminous eyes betraying no emotion. Kara entered the room, her presence commanding immediate attention. She didn't sit. Instead, she stood at the head of the table, her voice firm but measured. "We all know why we're here," she began. "The Dominion won't stop with humanity. They never stop. If we don't stand together, we'll all be wiped out, species by species, world by world." The Zarnak warrior snorted. Bold words from someone whose world is already ashes. Kara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't take the bait. "You think they'll spare you because you're stronger? Because you've lasted longer? Ask the Quarren what strength did for their homeworld." Xindral shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The discussion dragged on, with each faction voicing their grievances. The Zarnak wanted weapons. The Quarren demanded access to the technology buried on Sigma 6. Lumira insisted on autonomy, refusing to commit her people to open war. Darius leaned toward Kara, whispering, "They're not going to agree. They're too fractured." "They don't have to agree," Kara whispered back. "They just need to fight." Raising her voice, she addressed the room. "This isn't about trust or promises. It's about survival. You think the Dominion cares if we bicker over scraps? They'll annihilate us while we argue. We either fight together, or we die alone." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. For a moment it seemed they might listen. But then, the Zarnak warrior stood abruptly, his chair screeching against the floor. "You humans are desperate," he growled, "and desperation makes for weak allies. I won't tie my people to a sinking ship." With that, he stormed out of the room. Before Kara could respond, alarms blared through the ship. Harris's voice crackled over the comms. "Admiral, incoming Dominion ships, 3 cruisers dropping out of hyperspace." Kara's blood ran cold. "Get to the bridge," she ordered Darius before turning to the remaining representatives. "This is what the Dominion does. They divide us, isolate us, and destroy us. If you want to live, follow me." She didn't wait for their response, rushing to the bridge as the ship shuddered under the first impact. "Shields holding at 70%, Harris reported, "but they've got us boxed in." Kara scanned the tactical display. The Dominion cruisers were positioned to cut off any escape route. Their weapons fired in coordinated bursts, testing the Sol Ascendant's defenses. "Return fire," she commanded. "Target their engines. If we can disable one, we might create an opening." The ship's weapons roared to life, streaks of energy lancing through the void. The crew worked with precision, their movements synchronized despite the chaos. Kara barked orders, her voice cutting through the noise. "Lumira," she called, turning to the translucent alien who had followed her to the bridge. "Your ships, can they cloak?" Lumira hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but their weapons are weak. They're meant for reconnaissance, not battle. Then use them to confuse the Dominion, Kara said. Have them create false signals. Make it look like reinforcements are arriving. Lumira relayed the orders, her voice calm despite the tension. Moments later, her ships decloaked, their faint outlines flickering as they began transmitting decoy signals. The Dominion ships faltered, their formation breaking as they tried to track the new arrivals. Kara seized the opportunity. "Fire everything we've got at their lead ship!" The Sol Ascendant unleashed a barrage of firepower, striking the Dominion cruiser's engine core. The explosion lit up the void, sending debris spiraling outward. "They're retreating!" Harris exclaimed, as the remaining cruisers broke off their attack. Kara allowed herself a brief moment of relief, but as the Dominion ships disappeared into hyperspace, she knew the battle was far from over. Back in the conference room, the atmosphere was tense. The Zarnak warrior had returned, his expression unreadable. Lumira and Xanthal sat silently, their eyes fixed on Kara. "You saw what just happened," she said, her voice steady but firm. "The Dominion isn't invincible. If we stand together, we can win, but only if we work as one." The Zarnak warrior growled low in his throat. "You may have won this skirmish, human, but don't mistake it for victory. I'll fight with you for now, but don't think for a second that I trust you." Kara met his gaze without flinching. "I don't need your trust. I need your strength." Enjoying the twists and turns of humanity's fight for survival? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for the next thrilling chapter of HFY Genesis. The Sol Ascendant hovered in orbit above Sigma Cisar's second planet, its hull scarred from recent battles. Below, the planet's surface was an unbroken wasteland of blackened rock and jagged mountains. But buried deep beneath that desolation was something extraordinary, an ancient human structure, pulsing faintly with energy. Admiral Kara Myles stood on the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the live feed from the ground team's drone. The massive structure resembled a sprawling fortress, its surface etched with glowing patterns that seemed to shift and writhe like living things. "Reports coming in from the surface," Lieutenant Harris said, approaching her with a data pad. "The installation is sealed, but power levels are off the charts." Kara nodded, her jaw tightening. This was it. The gamble that had brought them to this forsaken system was paying off, but the sight of the ancient structure stirred something deep within her, a mixture of awe and unease. "Prep a team," she ordered. "We're going down there." The shuttle ride to the surface was tense. Kara sat with a small group of her most trusted crew members, including Commander Darius Cole, the Quarren scientist Dr. Xanthal, and a team of heavily armed soldiers. The atmosphere inside the shuttle was heavy with anticipation. "This technology predates anything we've ever seen," Xanthal said, his voice buzzing with excitement. "If the readings are accurate, it could rewrite everything we know about energy systems, weaponry." "Focus on the mission, Doctor," Darius interrupted, his tone gruff. "We don't know what's waiting for us down there." The shuttle shuddered as it passed through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. Outside, jagged peaks loomed like the bones of some long-dead giant, their edges sharp enough to tear the sky. As they neared the installation, the landscape flattened, revealing the structure in all its eerie grandeur. Kara leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the massive doors that marked the entrance. They were made of some unknown alloy, black as obsidian, and marked with symbols that seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. "Touchdown in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. "Lock and load," Darius growled, his hand resting on the rifle slung across his chest. The team moved cautiously through the installation's entrance, their boots echoing against the smooth metallic floor. The air was thick with the hum of dormant machinery, and the faint glow from the walls cast eerie shadows. "Stay sharp," Kara said, her voice low but firm. Xanthal moved ahead, scanning the walls with a handheld device. "These symbols, they're a language, but not one I've seen before. They're almost alive." Suddenly, the floor trembled. A deep, Resonant hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. "Admiral!" one of the soldiers called out, pointing to the walls. The glowing symbols were shifting, converging toward a central point. The team tensed, weapons raised, as a section of the wall slid open, revealing a massive chamber bathed in golden light. At its center was a colossal machine, its design both intricate and alien, yet unmistakably human. It pulsed with raw energy, its core a swirling vortex of light. "It's a forge," Xanthal whispered, his voice trembling. "A stellar forge. It's beautiful." The revelation Kara stepped closer to the machine, her eyes narrowing as she examined the glowing core. "Can we activate it?" Xanthal hesitated. "It's already active, Admiral. But using it, that's another matter. This level of power, it could destroy a planet or fuel an entire fleet." "We're not here to admire it," Darius said gruffly. "Can we weaponize it?" Xanthal nodded slowly. "Yes, but it will take time to understand the controls. And even then, there's no guarantee it won't destroy us in the process." Kara turned to face the team, her expression hard. "We don't have the luxury of time. The Dominion will come for us. They always do. If this forge is the key to turning the tide, we need to figure it out now." The tension in the room was palpable. Darius exchanged a worried glance with Kara. "And if it goes wrong?" Her answer was simple. "It won't." Hours turned into days as the crew worked tirelessly to interface with the forge. The installation was a labyrinth of control panels, conduits, and machinery, each piece more complex than the last. Xanthal led the effort, his excitement tempered by the enormity of the task. "This technology is temperamental," he explained during a briefing. "It responds to intent, almost like it's alive. If we make even one mistake, we won't," Kara said firmly. Finally, the time came for the first test. The team gathered in the forge's central chamber, their faces illuminated by the golden light of the core. Xanthal stood at a console, his hands trembling slightly as he prepared to activate the system. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, pressing a sequence of symbols. The forge roared to life, its core flaring brilliantly. Energy surged through the chamber, causing the ground to tremble. A beam of light shot upward, piercing the planet's atmosphere and disappearing into the void of space. "It's working," Xanthal breathed, his voice filled with awe. But before anyone could celebrate, alarms blared. "The enemy arrives." "Admiral!" Harris's voice crackled over the comms. "Dominion ships just dropped out of hyperspace. 3 destroyers and a dreadnought." Kara's heart sank. The forge's activation must have alerted them. "Damn it," she muttered. "Darius, get everyone back to the ship. Xanthal, can we fire the forge's weapon?" The Quarren scientist hesitated. "It's not ready. We've barely scratched the surface of its controls. Then figure it out," Kara snapped. As the team rushed back to the Sol Ascendant, the Dominion ships began their assault. Energy blasts rained down on the planet, shaking the ground and sending debris flying. Kara's mind raced. This forge could turn the tide of the war, she thought. But if we lose it now, we lose everything. Back aboard the Sol Ascendant, Kara took command. The ship's weapons fired relentlessly, but it was clear they were outmatched. The Dominion dreadnought loomed closer, its weapons charging for a final, devastating blow. "Xanthal, I need that forge weapon online now," Kara shouted over the comms. "I'm working on it," Xanthal replied, his voice strained. Kara turned to Darius. "We're out of options. We either use the forge, or we die here." Darius nodded grimly. "Then let's make it count." The forge roared to life once more, its energy building to a crescendo. Xanthal's voice crackled over the comms. "It's ready, Admiral, but I can't control the output. It's all or nothing." Kara's voice was steady. "Fire." The forge unleashed a beam of pure energy, brighter than a star. It sliced through the Dominion fleet, destroying the dreadnought and its escort ships in a single blinding instant. The shockwave rippled across the system, shaking the Sol Ascendant to its core. As the light faded, the bridge was silent. Kara sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. "We did it," Darius said quietly, his voice filled with disbelief. Kara nodded, but her expression was grim. "This is just the beginning. The Dominion will come back, and next time, they'll bring everything they have. If you had the power of the Forge, would you risk using it, knowing it could destroy everything? What choice would you make? Loving the story so far? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more epic chapters of HFY Genesis." The atmosphere aboard the Sol Ascendant was tense. Despite the recent victory using the Stellar Forge, Admiral Kara Myles knew the Dominion would retaliate. The crew worked tirelessly, repairing the warship and preparing for the next confrontation. But the uneasy silence in the halls and the strained expressions on her officers' faces told her something was wrong. In the central briefing room, Kara reviewed intelligence reports with Commander Darius Cole and Dr. Xindral. Dominion fleet movements suggest they're regrouping near the Perseus Arm, Darius said, pointing to a holographic map of the galaxy. "We have a small window to strike before they reinforce." Xanthal's insectoid mandibles clicked nervously. "We cannot rely on the Forge indefinitely. Its energy output is unpredictable. If we overextend, we risk destroying ourselves." Kara nodded, her gaze fixed on the map. "Then we strike strategically, take out their supply lines and buy ourselves time. But first, we need to secure alliances." The alien representatives, Lumira, the translucent being of light, and General Vrax of the Zarnak, were summoned to the bridge. Kara addressed them directly, her tone firm but diplomatic. "We need to act now," she said. "The Dominion is regrouping. If we wait, they'll overwhelm us. I need your fleets to join us." Vrax sneered, his jagged scales glinting under the bridge's lights. "Your forge is impressive, human, but it won't save you. My people won't march into a war we cannot win." "Then what's the point of fighting at all?" Kara shot back, her frustration bleeding through. Lumira's voice was calm but distant. "My people require certainty. The Dominion's strength is overwhelming. We need guarantees." "Guarantees?" Kara interrupted, stepping closer. "The only guarantee is that if we don't fight together, we'll all die. You've seen what the Forge can do. With your fleets and our weapon, we have a chance." The room fell silent. Vrax exchanged a glance with Lumira, something unspoken passing between them. Kara narrowed her eyes. "Is there something I should know?" she asked, her voice edged with suspicion. "No," Vrax said quickly. Too quickly. Later that night, alarms blared through the Sol Ascendant. Kara rushed to the bridge, where Harris was already shouting over the chaos. "Admiral, the Zarnak fleet just broke formation and is heading toward the Dominion coordinates." "What?" Kara demanded, her mind racing. "They've sent a transmission to the Dominion," Harris continued, his face pale. "They've betrayed us." Kara's blood ran cold. "And Lumira?" "She's gone," Harris replied. "Her ships cloaked and disappeared an hour ago." Darius slammed his fist against the console. "Damn them. They've sold us out." Kara's chest tightened as the weight of betrayal settled over her. She had gambled everything on uniting these factions, only to have them turn on her when it mattered most. "Redirect all power to the shields," she ordered, her voice icy. "If the Dominion's coming, we need to be ready." The Dominion fleet arrived within minutes, led by the familiar hulking form of their flagship, the Devourer's Wrath. The Zarnak and Lumira ships had joined their formation, their betrayal now complete. "Shields at 80%, Harris reported. "Weapon systems are online, but we're outnumbered 10 to 1. Kara stood at the center of the bridge, her face calm, but her mind racing. "Focus fire on the Dominion dreadnoughts. Disable their engines. We need to create an opening. The Sol Ascendant roared to life, its railguns and energy cannons unleashing a storm of fire. The Dominion fleet responded in kind, their weapons slamming into the human warship's shields. The ship shuddered under the impact. Sparks flew from consoles, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. "Shields at 50%!" Harris shouted. Kara's hands gripped the edge of the console. "Hold the line! We've been through worse than this!" As the battle raged on, Xindral approached Kara, his expression grave. "Admiral, we must use the forge." Kara hesitated. "It's not stable. If we fire it now, we could destroy ourselves." "And if we don't?" Xindral asked, his voice sharp. "We'll die anyway." Kara's gaze swept across the bridge. Her crew was fighting valiantly, but the odds were impossible. She turned to Darius. "Get me a targeting solution for the forge," she said. Darius hesitated. "Kara, if this goes wrong—" "I know," she interrupted, "but it's the only way." The betrayer's redemption. Before the forge could fire, a new signal appeared on the scanners. A Zarnak ship broke formation and began attacking the Dominion fleet. "It's Vrax!" Harris exclaimed. Kara's eyes narrowed. "Patch him through." The Zarnak general's voice crackled over the comms. "Don't think this changes anything, human. My people don't follow cowards. If the Dominion thinks they can enslave us, they're wrong." Kara allowed herself a small smile. "Welcome to the fight, General." The tide of the battle shifted as Vrax's forces turned on their former allies. But it wasn't enough. The forge unleashed. "Admiral," Xindral said urgently. "The forge is ready." Kara's voice was steady. "Fire." The forge unleashed its devastating power, a beam of pure energy that tore through the Dominion fleet. Ships disintegrated in its wake, their destruction lighting up the void. The Devourer's wrath was caught in the blast, its massive hull splitting apart before exploding in a blinding flash. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Kara remained quiet, her eyes fixed on the screen. The battle was over, but the cost was high. Hours later, Kara stood on the observation deck, staring out at the debris-strewn void. The betrayal of Lumira and the Zarnak had nearly cost them everything. Darius joined her, his expression heavy. "We won, but at what cost?" Kara finished. He nodded. "You think they'll come back?" "They always do," Kara said softly. She turned to face him, her eyes hard. "We need to be ready, because next time, they won't just send a fleet. They'll send everything." Would you have trusted Vrax after his betrayal, or left him to fight alone? What would you have done in Kara's place? Enjoying the twists and turns of humanity's fight for survival? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more gripping chapters of HFY Genesis. Sol Ascendant floated in low orbit above a battered Earth. The planet's surface was a patchwork of ruins and fire, evidence of humanity's defiance against the Dominion. On the ship's bridge, Admiral Kara Myles stood in silence, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Dominion's fleet was on the move, hundreds of ships led by their new flagship, the Eternal Fury, a monstrosity twice the size of the Devourer's wrath. This would be the final battle, the one that would decide humanity's fate. Behind her, Commander Darius Cole approached. "Kara," he said softly, "the evacuation is complete. All remaining civilians are on the transports, waiting for clearance to jump to the outer colonies." Kara didn't respond immediately. Her hands rested on the console, gripping its edge as if to steady herself. Finally, she spoke. "Good. At least if we fail, humanity will survive, in some form." "You don't really believe we're going to lose, do you?" Darius asked, his voice a mixture of concern and challenge. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "No," she said. "But I know the cost of victory." The War Council convened in the central chamber of the Sol Ascendant, where holographic projections of Allied fleet commanders flickered into view. The ragtag coalition, human ships alongside vessels from Vrax's Zarnak fleet, and Lumira's remaining cloaked scouts was a far cry from the Dominion's armada. "We're outnumbered 5-1, one human captain said grimly. "Even with the Forge, this is suicide." "It's not suicide," Kara replied, her voice calm but firm. "It's survival. The Forge is our only chance. If we can create an opening and destroy their flagship, the rest of their fleet will fall into disarray." Xindral stepped forward, his insectoid features illuminated by the glow of the Forge's control schematic. "The Forge's weapon is unstable. If we push it beyond its limits, we risk destroying ourselves," Kara finished for him. "I'm aware. But if we don't use it, the Dominion will finish the job anyway. We have no choice." Vrax's gruff voice cut through the tension. "We Zarnak do not fight for survival. We fight for victory. And if this is our last stand, we will make it glorious." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a wave of death. Hundreds of sleek, black ships filled the void, their weapons charging as they surrounded Earth. At their center was the Eternal Fury, its colossal form casting a shadow over everything else. "Here we go," Darius muttered. Kara stood tall, her voice steady as she gave the order. "All ships, engage. Protect the transports at all costs." The Allied fleet surged forward, a desperate and chaotic charge against the Dominion's organized formation. Energy blasts lit up the darkness, streaking between ships like lightning. The Sol Ascendant led the charge, its weapons systems firing relentlessly. Smaller Dominion ships exploded under the onslaught, but the flagship remained untouched, its shields absorbing everything thrown at it. "Forge is charging," Xindral reported from the control room, "but we need more time." The Dominion's firepower was overwhelming. Allied ships were destroyed one by one, their debris littering the void. On the bridge of the Sol Ascendant, the tension was palpable. "Shields at 40%, Harris reported. "We can't keep this up." Kara clenched her fists. "Redirect power from non-essential systems to the shields and keep firing." Suddenly, a Zarnak warship broke through the Dominion line, ramming into a cruiser and destroying it in a fiery explosion. Over the comms, Vrax's voice growled, "Push forward, humans. Show them what defiance looks like." The tide began to shift. Inspired by Vrax's sacrifice, other ships followed suit, focusing their fire on key Dominion vessels. The Dominion fleet hesitated, their formation breaking for the first time. In the Forge's control chamber, Xindral worked frantically, his mandibles clicking as he adjusted the controls. The Forge's energy levels surged, its core glowing brighter than ever before. "Admiral," Xindral said over the comms, "the Forge is ready, but the energy buildup is unstable. Once we fire, we'll have minutes before the core destabilizes." Kara's voice was calm but resolute. "Understood. Target the Eternal Fury. We're taking that flagship down." The Forge's weapon charged, its energy beam piercing through the Dominion fleet. Ships disintegrated in its path, their debris scattering like ash. The beam struck the Eternal Fury, its shields flickering before collapsing. "Direct hit!" Harris shouted. "Keep firing," Kara ordered, but as the Forge unleashed its power, alarms blared. Xanthal's voice was frantic. "The core is destabilizing! We're running out of time!" The Eternal Fury was crippled, its hull breaking apart as secondary explosions rippled through it. But the Dominion fleet was still fighting, and the Forge's energy surge threatened to destroy everything. "Admiral," Darius said quietly, "we need to evacuate." "If the Forge goes critical," Kara shook her head. "If we evacuate now, the Dominion will regroup. This ends here." She turned to the crew, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Prepare the ship for a collision course with the Eternal Fury. If we're going down, we're taking them with us." The bridge fell silent. No one questioned her order. The Sol Ascendant surged forward, its engines burning brightly as it barreled toward the Dominion flagship. Kara stood at the helm, her expression calm but determined. "This is for Earth," she said quietly, "and for everyone who still believes in humanity." The collision was cataclysmic. The Sol Ascendant smashed into the Eternal Fury, the impact triggering a chain reaction that engulfed both ships in a massive explosion. The Forge's core detonated moments later, its energy tearing through the Dominion fleet. The void was silent. The Dominion fleet was gone, destroyed by the Forge's final act. But so was the Sol Ascendant. The galaxy was quiet. The once mighty Dominion fleet had been reduced to smoldering debris scattered across space. Earth, though battered and scarred, still turned beneath the dim light of its damaged atmosphere. Aboard the Sol Eternus, the last surviving flagship of humanity's fleet, the survivors gathered to piece together what remained of their civilization. Admiral Kara Myles was gone, her final sacrifice sealing humanity's victory against impossible odds. But her legacy, her spirit, lived on. In the command room of the Sol Eternus, Commander Darius Cole stood before a council of leaders from the allied species. The atmosphere was solemn, but hope lingered in their expressions. "The Forge's destruction has left us vulnerable," Darius began, his voice steady despite the weight of recent losses. "We no longer have its power to shield us, and the Dominion remnants may regroup. But humanity has always found strength in adversity." Lumira, her translucent form shimmering faintly, nodded. "You have proven that even the smallest spark can ignite a fire. My people are prepared to offer what resources we can to aid in the reconstruction." General Vrax, his scaled hands resting on the table, growled in agreement. "The Dominion learned that strength lies not in numbers, but in unity. My warriors will stand with you." Darius allowed himself a small smile. Kara's dream of uniting the galaxy wasn't just a fleeting vision, it was becoming reality. As the council adjourned, Darius made his way to the observation deck. The view of Earth was sobering, cities reduced to rubble, oceans clouded with ash, but beneath it all, the resilience of life. A voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Beautiful, isn't it?" He turned to see Dr. Xanthel, his insectoid features softer than usual. "Beautiful?" Darius asked, his brow furrowing. Xanthel gestured to the planet. "What remains of it? Despite everything, life persists. Your species, you always find a way." Darius exhaled, his gaze returning to the planet. "Kara believed in that. She gave everything to ensure we had a chance to rebuild. And rebuild you shall," Xanthel said, his tone resolute. "The Forge may be gone, but its knowledge remains. We can learn from it, create new tools, new weapons, perhaps even new worlds." Darius nodded. "She'd like that." Weeks turned into months as the survivors worked tirelessly to rebuild. Earth became a symbol of defiance, its battered surface serving as a reminder of what was lost and what was gained. Across the galaxy, word of the Dominion's defeat spread. Once subjugated species rose up, inspired by humanity's stand. Small rebellions turned into full-scale revolutions, and the Dominion remnants were driven into hiding. In the newly formed Galactic Alliance headquarters, a vast station orbiting Earth, leaders of dozens of species gathered. Holographic banners displayed the Alliance's emblem, a star encircled by hands of different shapes and sizes. Darius, now leading the Alliance's military efforts, addressed the assembly. "We've proven that together, we can overcome anything. But unity isn't something we achieve once and forget. It's something we build every day. Let Kara Myles' sacrifice remind us that our strength lies in each other." The chamber erupted in applause, a sound that echoed across the station. On Earth's surface, amidst the ruins of a once great city, a small group of engineers worked to rebuild a beacon, a towering structure that would broadcast humanity's message across the stars. At its base, a plaque bore Kara's name, alongside the names of those who had given their lives in the final battle. One of the engineers, a young woman with soot-streaked cheeks, paused to look up at the beacon. "Do you think anyone out there will hear us?" Her companion, an older man with a worn but kind face, nodded. "They'll hear. and they'll know that humanity doesn't just survive, we rise. In the quiet of the observation deck aboard the Sol Aeternus, Darius stood alone, a small hologram in his hand. It displayed Kara, her expression resolute, recorded during the early days of the war. "You once told me we'd never win this," he said softly, "but you gave us hope when we had none. You showed us that even in the darkest times, we can find a way forward." He placed the hologram on the console, watching as it flickered before fading away. Above Earth, the stars shone brighter than they had in years. As the Galactic Alliance solidified its presence, ships began to explore the farthest reaches of the galaxy, searching for new worlds, new allies, and remnants of the Dominion's influence. Earth, though wounded, thrived. Its people rebuilt their cities with the help of allied species, creating a new society that blended cultures and technologies. Children grew up learning about the war, about Kara Myles, and about the forge that had turned the tide. And in the hearts of all who remembered, one truth remained. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. What would you do to honor a legacy like Kara's? How would you carry forward the unity she fought to create? Love the journey of humanity's rise to power? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with others who love tales of resilience and hope. Stay tuned for more adventures from HFY Genesis.